Hey everyone, good morning. It's Rebecca, and you are tuning in to Rebecca Undum Live. It is our weekly Facebook time together where we jam on one simple topic to help us move the needle in our personal and or professional lives, all about helping women live big in small towns. So welcome. As you guys are coming on and joining me this morning, I would love to just get a hey girl, hey, or a hello, or a whatever you want your greeting to be. And then I would love if you'd throw down an emoji for me in the comments today that expresses what your weekend was like. I would love to know what kind of a weekend you had. So I had a really great weekend. My husband and I, well, actually, it was just me and my kids. We went to the zoo in a nearby town on Friday. Got a really good health report for my daughter with her eyes, which was awesome. And then, we just we vegged and like went to the pool as a family and stuff. Did that it's just a like low key family weekend. It was fantastic. So mine, I don't know, would be like praise hands maybe for my emoji for the weekend. So as you're coming on, let us know what kind of a weekend you had. If you want to actually use words, feel free, but emojis are always fun too. So for those of you that are, as you're coming on, I'll quick do my little intro. My name's Rebecca Undum. I am the author of a book called How Mommy Got Her Groove Back. I happen to be drinking out of my How Mommy Got Her Groove Back mug this morning. And my aim in life is to help women that are living in smaller towns to recognize that we can bloom where we're planted and not to let it hold us back from what we want to accomplish and the dreams that we set out to do. So again, as you're joining, say hey, say ho, say good morning, and throw an emoji down in the comments to let us know what kind of a weekend you had. So this today, our topic today is continuing with the theme. So again, if you're new to me or watching this on a replay and you've never hung out with us before, hey, good morning, Shelly. Good morning. What we do at what I do in my business is I actually create a monthly theme, and that just helps me to stay focused on content that we want to talk about, and it gives us focus for our Facebook Lives as well, and along with just the other content that I work on in a given month. So in June, we've been jamming about creativity. And so far, hey, Cindy, good morning, greetings. I love it, greetings. And Darby, good morning. I love the name Darby, by the way. I don't know if I've ever told you that, but I think that's a really special, cool name. Okay, so far we've been talking about creativity. That's the theme of the month of June. And we really talked so far in context about the first month's topic was or week's topic was just really just what is creativity, and that misconception that we often have that it's like glitter and Mod Podge, right? Like if you can DIY things, then you're creative. If you can't, then you're not. And we dispelled some of those myths. We talked about how it can help us in our business if we have a business of our own, if we're an entrepreneur like me, or if you're working for somebody else, why creativity matters at work. And then last week we tackled how we can cultivate it at home. And so I absolutely love creativity, the whole concept of it. And again, I think in the first week's call or session, I talked about the book Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. Fantastic approach to creativity. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. Because this, you know what creativity reminds me of is the idea of Glinda the Good Witch in The Wizard of Oz, where at the end, she helps Dorothy get back home and she tells Dorothy that she had the power all along. It was one of my favorite things, right? Like you always had the power, my dear. You just need to believe. And that's what I feel like creativity is like. It's always there. It's always lurking, and we can actually use it and move. There's so many things that we can shift when we embrace open-mindedness and kind of the abundance of all the stuff that's out there for us at our disposal, waiting for us to use it. So when we decide to cultivate it, it's a skill. It can be developed. Everybody can. So today we're going to talk specifically about the context of our communities. And I got to say, like, I feel like I've learned a whole lot about, not just my own small town, but just small towns in general. And some of the politics is such a strong word, but there are politics, I think, in a small town. There's politics in just about everything, unfortunately. And also just some of the actual challenges that we have. And I really believe in my heart of hearts that creativity can be one of the keys to help us unlock and get ourselves unstuck with some of the challenges that we maybe see in a community. Now, I'm going to say this, like if you're sitting there and you're like, well, I'm not really in a small town, that's okay, because you're in a town, you live somewhere. Think of committees that you're a part of. Think of churches the church that you belong to. Think of, and this again can kind of go back to work as well. The things that we're talking about today, I hate to call them issues, But these are challenges that I think creativity can help us address specifically in small towns. So I am the current president for our Small Towns Chamber of Commerce. Right now, I'm seriously practically obsessed with talking about how we can innovate in our small towns so that we have a bright future, not just for those of us that are currently living here, but for the children that we're raising. Because I would love it if my kids wanted to move back to a small town. So how do we get them to want to do that? How do we get them to care, right? So again, if you're joining, say hey, ho, good morning, whatever. And I would love to see what your weekends were like. So if you guys missed this at the beginning, throw down an emoji. Like, pick one that's kind of fun. Did you have a good weekend? Was it all like sunshine, and was it kids? Was it yard work? Were you planting flowers? What were you doing? Let us know with an emoji, because it's always fun. I need to just like memorize and get my phone to like text predict the coffee emoji, because I need a lot of it today especially. So there we go. Hey, there's Lorena. Her weekend was running, 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 and a sad face. Running, running, running. Or like maybe a scared face. Did you actually run a race? Or were you just racing all over with people? And then a lot of Z's, like little sleepy faces, which that's perfect. All the running, kind of a terrified little face, like a face, and then more running and Z's. So you have to tell us, Lorena, were you like actually, did you run a race? Or is that just general run of the mill running all over the place like a parent? Because that's life, is it not? Okay, so that's awesome. So follow Lorena's lead and tell us what your weekend was like with emojis. I think it's super fun. Okay. So recently, also in my role as chamber president, I've attended a few conferences that are really specific to innovating in small towns. And man, we've talked so much about just the future of a community. And it's really easy in a bigger community to just assume it'll always be there. And in a small town, I just don't think that we can afford to take that for granted anymore. And so we're going to jam on a few things. I'd like to share with you what I think are 4 issues. And again, I use the word issues, and I've got my notes here so I stay on track for you guys. But they're challenges really that can be addressed if we choose creativity. Okay. And like I'm saying, this list isn't exhaustive. So by all means, friends, pipe up and let me know what you think about this. Okay. So here is number 1. We're talking about 4 challenges that can be addressed. Now, I'm talking kind of in the context specifically of a smaller community, but this is a church group. This is a committee. This could be a work dynamic. This is literally any situation where you're working with more than one person and you have a collective, you have a group, you have a team. Okay. Lorena just says housework, yard work, craziness, all the running. I totally get it. Oh, well, it's like you need a nap then to start your Monday, and that's always challenging. All right. So here's number 1. The first challenge that can be addressed with creativity is the mentality of, but we've always done it that way. Okay, so this is one of the hardest things for me to hear. And I'm not even kidding. Like my ears want to bleed as soon as I hear that. I feel like sometimes there is that perception that there is an old guard and a new guard. Meaning the old guard is we love the tradition. We love what we stand for. We love what we've built. And then sometimes the new guard comes in and says, but let's try this and try this and try this. And it sometimes can just feel like a clashing, right? So I think that creativity really, if we take it on, and again, creativity, not glitter and glue and DIY, but opening your mind, choosing to see other perspectives and thinking about creative problem solving. Okay. That's creativity. That's the context that we're looking at. I think it can help us honor our traditions and build on the past without staying stuck there. Because here's like hands up, honestly, just give me like a heck yes, amen, if you can relate to this, because companies, churches, families, all of us, we can fall prey to this like mindset that it doesn't need to change because it's worked up until now. Okay. And so I don't want to imply that we should change just for the sake of change. Okay. Although I do tend to kind of lean that way because I'm just wired that way. Like I like change. I like things to get shaken up a little bit. But we need to consider that just because what we've always done has worked up till now, at what point do we ever stop and say, is this the future that we want to build? Is this supporting this action, this committee, this event, this project, whatever it is it supporting the vision that we have for our group, for our committee, for our community? So I'm going to just simply say that it should be said, the flip side of this mentality is to shoot something down because it's been tried before, like 20 years in the past. So I've heard that as well. Like, we've already tried that. So it's either we've always done it this way and we like it this way, or it's, but we've already tried that and it didn't work. We need to remember that an old idea can be reinvigorated with new people, new ideas, and just new circumstances. So there's a chance that a previously tried or attempted plan may actually work another time around. And creativity is really the thing, the catalyst that allows us to try again. So Lorena said, annoyingly so, not all change is bad. And honestly, most change isn't bad, but all change is hard. And that's what's tricky about this, right? And so we're going to get into this a little bit deeper, but this first thing of, if your knee-jerk response to change is, but we've never done that, or but we've already tried that, or but we've always done it the way we're doing it, what's wrong with it? That's when we need to question. We need to ask ourselves, okay, so what is the resistance? And is this really what we want to do? And does it, just because you've done it in the past doesn't mean it's right today, right? So it's always about asking yourself, is it serving the future that we're trying to build? Not just the past. And that's tricky. I get it. Like, in our small town, we really hold on to tradition, and I don't want to let go of tradition. But I think with creativity, this open-mindedness, we can build on what's been done that's successful. It's a foundation that we're going to build a new future on, right? And it's not saying that you change everything, but we're talking, I swear that is a knee-jerk response. It could almost be in a billboard for a lot of small towns, like, Oaks, North Dakota. We've always done it that way. And not just Oaks, but a lot of small towns. So I think creativity is that's one of the big challenges that we can overcome when we take on a creative mindset instead. Number 2, another challenge is the Pareto principle. So obviously this principle, it's the 80-20 rule, right? That 80% of your results come from 20% of the causes. So 80% of the wealth in the world is owned by 20% of the people. 80% of the value is achieved by 20% of our actions. 80% of complaints come from 20% of people. There's a reason that this shows up everywhere. It's common, right? And in small towns, and in a lot of towns, really, I think all of us can experience this. Again, hands up if you get this or have felt this way. But 80% of the results, or at 80% of the work, is done by 20% of the people. Well, okay, there's a couple things to this. Sometimes, yes, that's just kind of a baseline truth. But in small towns, and all of their groups and committees, it's common, but it can be overcome. And literally, it starts with our willingness to let other people in. So I don't know a different word other than inbred. Okay, so like I say that even with, I actually did do a thesaurus search to see if I could find a word that would replace that word, because I don't love the word inbred, but it's this inbred approach to committee formation. Like, we find our own replacements for boards or for positions that we're on, instead of asking new people, like really paying attention to the capabilities and the skill sets that people outside of that typical group of people might have. And then the most important thing is, if somebody says, yes, like I'll join, or yes, I'll be on this board, or yes, I'll be in this committee, is to really try and like entertain their new ideas or their thoughts. Because one of the hardest things is when a new person does come in, like they even get the chance to begin with, which doesn't happen very often. We all complain that it's the same people doing all the work all the time. But if you've ever experienced it and you've seen someone new come in, it's like we're so closed off to new ideas that it's pretty hard for anybody outside of that core group of people to ever break into the group, right? So if they do happen to make it in, and immediately we shoot down every single idea that they have, that closed-mindedness is going to keep them from coming back. So it's an entrenched mindset, kind of, where it's like, you don't understand, you haven't been, and the whole idea of knowing all the history. Well, sometimes, do you really need all the history, or do you need to know where you're going, right? So this idea of all the work's done by this small group of people, sometimes we are to blame for that. So I'm asking you, have you experienced that in either a small town or any committee? I think about college. I actually was talking to a girlfriend of mine about high school, her daughter. We were talking about how much certain kids hate group projects. Well, I remember in college, where we didn't have so many of them in high school, but in college is where we really started doing group projects. And sometimes it was like I cared more than everybody else. You have that situation where all the work is done by a small majority of people. Well, we have to stop and ask ourselves, how are we nurturing this? How are we asking people to get involved? Are we recruiting, actively looking for new people? Or do we just keep going back to the same people because A, we know they'll do it, and B, they know the history. So that inbred mentality is sometimes part of the problem. So Virginia said she's seen this in her school PTO. Yeah, PTO would be a great example of that, I think. Or just, we've got some civic organizations in our community where the membership doesn't really ever change. It's the same group of people all the time. And yet then they complain, right? So again, I'm saying, like, I see both sides of this. I understand it. But instead of complaining, what if we say, how could we creatively approach this situation? And sometimes it's simply a matter of saying, how are we doing as a group? What are we doing to contribute to the fact that we can't get anybody in here? Maybe the group is unfriendly. Maybe the group is unwelcoming, right? Okay, so that's the second thing. Third thing, and this is again particular to, I think about my small town, but I think about all small towns, and I think about, again, the whole purpose of today is about community, but this happens everywhere. It's the generational divide, which often is one of the reasons that causes, number one, that whole old guard, new guard thing. Having more than one generation present in a group, it's truly a beautiful thing. Like, it's good, you guys, but it's also one of the groups that one of the reasons that a lot of groups stagnate. The veterans in the group, we need to encourage them to let go as much as the younger, like, let go of the control, let go of the past, let go of the tradition, let go of how it's always been done, as much as we need to encourage our younger generation to remember and honor the hard work and dedication that the veterans took to get us where we are, right? So it's creativity in the context of what we're talking about is an open-mindedness to seeing it from another perspective. And so if we can think about what that other group might be thinking and feeling, instead of just getting frustrated immediately. Like, I've seen it, you guys. I'm hoping you guys can, like, tell me if you see this as well. It's not just one or the other that needs to bend. Of course, if you're from the younger generation, you end up saying, well, the older generation is stodgy and they're stuck in their ways and they're difficult and they're fixed in their mindset. They're closed off. Okay? Maybe true. It's a perspective. And the older generation may be saying these young kids don't know, they're entitled, they don't know how to work, they have no respect for what we've done, all of those things. It's a perspective. Is it right? Is it wrong? It's their perspective. So we don't get to actually judge the rightness or wrongness of it. We need to embrace it, understand it, and try to respect one another. Because what I think that creativity allows us to do in this whole discussion of generations is it allows a bridge to be built. And it first starts with the desire to care. We talked about this last week with the context of being at home. It drives empathy. Creativity drives empathy, and empathy is the bridge between a generational divide. So it's, what we tend to do is create a full exaggeration of the worst qualities. Instead of saying, like, sometimes they can be a little this, it's like all of them are this or all of them are this. Either all of the young people are entitled and they don't know how to work, or they're lazy, right? And all the old people suck at technology and are difficult and stodgy. We end up exaggerating the worst out of both. And that doesn't do good. That doesn't do any good for anybody. So obviously there's potentially truths in all of that, but creativity is the bridge. I've witnessed groups that can come together beautifully. And I think when we decide to try and bring together both, you get better results. Because honestly, when you want to move fast and you want to change everything, like a younger generation may want to, they do need to be reminded of all the different things that have been tried, not as it's never going to work, but as a caution. Like, we've been down some of these roads before, and here's the pitfalls we ran into. And that just makes your execution of whatever you land on as a plan better. Okay. So it takes effort. It does take concerted effort to get over ingrained beliefs. But again, if we're looking at creativity as the catalyst, we can look for ways to work together. Just, to save a small town, to save a committee, to save a church. Oh my gosh, the generational divide is crazy in churches as well. Okay, I'm taking a drink of coffee. So any other comments, guys? Can you relate? Do you feel like you have experienced that generational divide? And again, I think the generational divide is sometimes the thing that drives that initial challenge that I addressed, the we've always done it this way mentality. All right. The fourth challenge that I think creativity can really help us overcome is the pervasive outlook that rural America is dying. Now, okay, so there's some trends. There's legitimate trends that we need to address, and we need to acknowledge as truth. We can't just pretend because we don't want it to be so that it's not. But the truth is, if we want to be relevant, again, a company, a church, a community, you want to be relevant 20 years down the road. Creativity is a must. It's a requirement. We can't get by without it. So we need to start thinking as a small community. One of the things I'm really excited about right now, we just hired a new position in our small town chamber. She's actually doing dual chamber and economic development. And so we've been talking a lot about how to market our community as a place where young people would want to move back and start a family. Thinking about, how do we encourage entrepreneurs to return here and start a business potentially? So we need to come up with creative ways to use the spaces and the buildings that we have in our small town. And basically, we don't have a choice. We can't rest. And that's the thing I think that's hard is we want to be able to just rest. We want to be able to just let coast, and I get it, without constantly pushing, without constantly working so hard. But I don't think in small communities, especially, that we can really afford to. When you look at the changing nature of just economics, even in a bigger community, like Fargo, North Dakota is our biggest city in North Dakota. Still, in my mind, a small town, comparatively speaking, right? It doesn't have 1 million people in it. It doesn't even have 250,000 people in it. So it's a small town. When you look at the changing nature of retail, you look at the changing nature of what drives economics, a town like Fargo can't afford to rest. So we constantly need to be seeking proactive ways to grow, to market. We need to think about our community like almost like a business or like a company, where if we were going to recruit people to come and work for us or to be a part of this team, what do we need to say? What do we need to do? So this is the truth. Like with anything, we need to know the vision for what we want. And if we don't, we need to define that first. So I would say, going back to everything we've been talking about today, what does your community want to be 20 years from now? What does your church want to be? What does your company want to be? What does your family want to be? Have you guys ever written a family vision for yourselves? It's a really cool thing to do as a family, to think about, who do we want to be? How do we want to move through the world? What do we care about? And what do we want people, when they think about the Undum family, what do we want them to say? What do we want them to think? What do we want them to feel? So the idea of a vision is it's one of those super cliche corporate-y kinds of words, but man, I think it's got tons of applications. So the first thing is to figure out what it is that you want. 20 years from now, envision it. What is it going to be? And then from there, creativity is the constant asking, is what we're doing right now serving that future vision? If not, how do we change it? Okay, so again, to just recap, these 4 challenges that I think creativity can really help us address, specifically in communities, but as I keep saying, it's more than that. It's anywhere where there is more than one person trying to make something happen as a group. So the first, it can address that mentality of, but this is the way we've always done it. The second is it can help us address the 80-20 rule. Get more people involved. All we have to do is look. There's talent abounding in your community. I guarantee it. We just need to pay attention and look for it. The third is the generational divide, the us versus them of different generations. Hey, good morning, Rhonda. And then the fourth is really the doomsday outlook that rural America is dying. Yes, there's a trend happening. People are migrating away, but we're the ones in control of changing that. We have to change the narrative. We have to tell our story. We have to tell a story worth listening to. Okay, so that is what I've got for you. I hope that you guys, that you loved this topic of creativity, and I hope that it changed the way you think about, honestly, how you think about everything, because nothing is stuck, nothing is stagnant unless we choose to make it so. And the first step is deciding what you want it to be instead, and then constantly assessing what you're doing against whether or not it fits that future vision, it supports that future vision. So again, the coolest thing is a skill. It's a habit, and every single one of us can cultivate it, okay? And we can start right now. So over in the Groove Seekers community, where I think personally the best conversations about all of these topics tend to happen, we're going to continue this conversation and talk a bit more about it. So if you haven't joined, I'll drop the link. Please join us in the Groove Seekers community, and we'll add a few more. I'll add a specific question about small town innovation. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is, speaking of, innovation, creativity, all of those things, in May, so it was just last month, I offered a first ever retreat opportunity. It's called the Big Life Retreat. And it's specific to women that want to live bigger, play bigger than they're currently living. And really it's for women in small communities. And I will tell you, it's a 4-hour virtual retreat. And this last month was the first offering of it. I had never done it before. And I had some serious doubts. Like, how do you keep people engaged for 4 hours? You guys hang with me here for Facebook Live. This is even a long one. 25 minutes gets to be a little bit long. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, how are we going to do this? My goal was to create an event or a retreat that felt like we were in the room together. Okay. So along with the actual retreat time, you get a physical box of stuff that we unbox together as part of the program. All I can say is that I think it far surpassed not only my own hopes, which was great, but the women in it, the feedback that I got from the women that were in it. So Rhonda was one of them. Thanks, Rhonda. She said it was a great experience. Specifically, they addressed with me. So I asked for their feedback. Specifically, they said, I never thought I'd be able to stay engaged for 4 hours. But how we do it is there's some activities that I give you, you go away, you come back, and the group still feels small and it still feels very, very connected. And so I'm going to be offering this once a quarter. And the next quarterly offering is on July 31st. So the very last day of July, I'm opening, and the registration is live right now. All I will say is this: if you've never done anything for yourself in terms of professional or personal development, this is a really great place to start, because you get physical stuff which can support you beyond that 4-hour period of time. And let's be real, it's hard to get away. That was why I wanted to do it virtually to begin with, because I want to work with people. I want to get into your life with you and support you in what you're trying to accomplish. And yet I can't drive to everywhere all the time because I live in the middle of nowhere, like so many of the women do that I support and love. So I want you to take a look at this. It's just so different than what anything I'd ever done before. And if the 4-hour time window sounds daunting and crazy, that's what I really encourage you to take a look at. So I'm going to post the link to the page so you can kind of see all the ins and outs of what it is that we actually cover. And if you have any questions about it, just let me know. I'd be happy to answer anything for you. But I'd love nothing more than to really get to know you and what it is that you specifically want to accomplish better, okay, in the Big Life Retreat, July 31st. So I will put the details to that in the comments here. And next month, our July theme is freedom. It seems like the appropriate thing to focus on since we celebrate our country's independence and freedom on the 4th of July. So we're going to be breaking down several different topics of what we need to free ourselves from. Going to be fantastic topics. I hope you will continue to hang with me for Facebook Live. And as always, I'll see you again. I guess July 2nd is next Monday. So I was going to say have a happy 4th, but I'll say that on next Monday. So until I see you next Monday, everybody have an amazing week. Groove on, sisters. I love you guys. I hope that you're doing awesome. And just keep hanging with us. It's super fun to see you guys here every single Monday. It seriously is the best way to start my week. Okay, we'll talk to you guys soon.